Hi, everyone. This is Melissa Mari, and this is my interview program. It's called Living Gold, and it's where I'm featuring incredible artists, people from all walks of life, healers, teachers, farmers. It could be anyone, but who is living their life art journey here on this planet and using their life as the alchemical vessel. So I'm so excited today because I have Nigel Mitchell here, and he is an incredible multi-artist. He does all sorts he writes, he has books of poetry, he's a musician, he does audio, video, movies and videos, but more importantly, he is living his life art path. And I found Nigel, I met him through the whole COVID nonsense, through Shadow Tech, because we were very active. We had a group called After the Red Pill, and so we were interacting with a lot of people, or a few people, it wasn't that many people at that time, who were questioning reality. And he has a video on there called Question Reality. And but anyway, so he's one of the few musicians that showed up and artists that showed up and started to speak out against this. And I know that Nigel lives in LA, which was just a centerpiece for a lot of craziness. So anyway, I have Nigel here, and I want to start from the beginning. And so you were born in the UK, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what was your first memory?
My first
That's
memory was trying to break up an argument between my parents by singing and dancing. I
ah.
I loved to sing and dance and entertain when I was very, very young. I did
Oh, really?
impressions. I did impressions of the current pop stars. I mean, you got to remember, I'm going back to the late 1950s. The early 1960s. And I think one of my earliest memories was, my parents constantly bickering. I mean, not fighting, but bickering with each other over all sorts of stuff. And my feeling inside as a child was this is going to end in a fight. So my job was to entertain, to distract.
So early on, that's very interesting. There was like a need from the child to make peace, to bring love back, because you're being a child, we were helpless, basically. I mean, we just want to be loved and love and be a child. And so if you have any friction that's going on in the house, obviously the children are going to pick right up on it. But in your case, the music and the dancing came out of oops, there's your phone. It's okay.
Turn it off.
It came out of this kind of a dual experience, right? This is really important in life, is like things that become our biggest joy in life can also have some trauma, or have the little bit of friction.
Yeah.
It seems like friction of any sort causes a natural state of like evolving, and even as a child.
Well,
So,
friction. I wrote a song not long ago. I say not long ago. I have no I'm not very good at chronological time. Everything I do, I just do and move on and do and move on. But I wrote a song not long ago called Friction Burns. And it does. I mean, this is the thing that gets, instilled in us before we're 6 or 7 years old, before we've even
Right.
entered into the larger world. We're in the smaller world of our family where our parents are our biggest influence. So, yeah, I mean, as a child, I mean, I had a brother that was 2 years younger than me, and he came out a hellion. He was one of those kids that would prod and poke until he upset somebody. Which I wasn't. I was the one that had to like make the peace,
I see.
and constantly there's this battle within a lot of families where the alpha male, my father, would be challenged by the younger. I mean, this is all like, going into the human tribe, anthropology, but it's even on the very basic level, avoiding conflict and being a messenger for peace were my early roles, and that continued my whole life. But avoiding conflict is impossible. It's not possible if you're going to integrate, because
Yes.
we can't always agree on everything. But the peaceful way is to agree to disagree and move on.
Right.
And that's the thing that I don't see happening even today, 67 years later.
I know.
It's
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to find that place in our hearts to forgive,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the forgiveness hasn't got to be forgotten. See, we were taught the little phrase, we're all taught this when we're kids. Oh, forgive and forget. Forgetting is the worst part of that equation. So you can throw that away, but forgive. And don't forget, because you don't want to repeat it again. That way you don't have to keep forgiving yourself, forgiving others, forgiving yourself, forgiving others. I mean, I find that way of assuaging your own responsibility,
Yes.
it comes with a burden of guilt. And guilt is a weight that no man should carry. We all make mistakes.
Yes.
My latest song is called My Mistake. But it's a generalism, because
Right.
active choices mean you're taking a chance. There's possibility versus probability. The possibility that you could be right, the probability because the general public are going in this direction doesn't look good for you, but it's still a possibility. So you keep
Yes.
on your path. You keep on the path of what your desire is. And your core desire was a gift given to you at birth. It's called unconditional love. Once you start
Yes.
once you start putting conditions on it, I'm pontificating already.
Oh, that's okay. No, you can
But
just go here.
once you start putting conditions on anything, it wasn't the thing that got me into trouble. It was always the rules and regulations that followed that thing.
I see.
So
Right.
it was seldom the thing that got me into trouble. Whatever it was that came up in my life, whatever it wasn't that got me into trouble. It was the rules and regulations built around whatever that mistake was made. And
Yes. So basically, somebody else's rules and regulations. Right.
exactly, yeah. I mean, when I was young enough to understand that I was being raised in a very class conscious society, and especially so in the 50s and 60s of England, when I fully realized that, I had to take on board the only maxim that I'll hang on to forever, everything, which is there is no authority but yourself. Now people misconstrue that. They think of it as like, oh, it's an anarchy term and we're going to throw a bomb and we're going to do. No, it is an anarchy term, but in truth, it's to your own self be true. There is no authority but yourself. When presented with any choices, and we're presented with a billion choices every day, but when we're presented with any choices, do not follow, unless you believe in it, something that is just presented as your answer. Find your own answer and be your own authority. Make a choice, but you might make a mistake, but that's okay. Forgive yourself.
That was, yeah, I mean, when you grew up and when I grew up, which was in the 70s and the 80s, we grew up to question, reality and question authority and rebel, basically, and become your own authority. It was like part of the whole culture at that time. But it seems as time has gone by, it flipped. And so now there's a whole new generation of people that need this kind of wisdom, that the people that you would have thought would be speaking out against, getting a certain jab or, certain things done to them, or even question the system and the two-party system and in our country, in the United States, or there just has been less and less of that. And so I think it is really important, and this is the thing, is that there's a lot of people, now that we have all the social media and everything, there's a lot of people out there who don't have as much life experience and are just, going along with the system, and then they think they're being manipulated and they think they're being rebellious to have purple hair or to do what everybody else does. But actually, they're just being manipulated.
But everybody's manipulated. I mean,
yeah.
Everybody is manipulated. We manipulate each other. I'm manipulating you. You're manipulating me. It's just how offensive you're being, or whether you're doing it because you want to open up the dialogue for a better world. Now, I mean, I don't get butthurt when people say, oh, I don't like your music. I don't like your art. I don't like you. I mean, why should that bother me? I mean, I'm very happy being creative. The problem being is we're sold rebellion too. And the thing is that those that sell us rebellion are already using a term, Hegelian dialect, problem, reaction, solution. In other words, they want the solution of you going, right, I'm going to take on the government. They want that conflict. So how do they posit that? Well, they give you a problem. This side is allowing too many immigrants or whatever, this hoo-ha over here. So they wait for the public to react, and then they bring in the solution, which they had in place all the time, which was more immigration controls, which to me is like, where are we immigrating from? What planet? I mean, we're in a massive multiverse, and we're pointing fingers at people from outside of our local sphere, our our state, our town, our state, and so on and so forth, and it keeps going. I don't think there should be borders, but to implement that would mean to lift every rule and every regulation. Well, are we ready to do that big lift? Are we ready
Obviously not.
Are we ready to unveil the truth that we're in charge of ourselves?
Yeah, well, see, that's a thing is that what I'm trying to bring here is about self-responsibility, that our lives are a piece of art that we and God, or the mystery that's coming through us, is guiding us. And so really the key is to connect with that source and then take responsibility for that and everything and every word, and be authentic as much as you can. And of course we make mistakes, but we be authentic into our big S self, or that part of us that's connected. The part of you that wanted to sing and dance is coming from God, or the mystery. That's, that's your essence. And so that's the whole point, is that if we can inspire, which I think that you do, is by your life, the way that you live is inspiring other people to take responsibility and find that spark within them. One of the things that I noticed, well, I haven't even gotten into your history because I don't know, like you do a lot of electronic music, but I want to know where, so what were your first influences, as far as musically go? What were you listening to?
Well, as a child, I mean, you listen to what your parents play. My parents were still playing post Second World War swing music. They were big fans of Joe Loss and his orchestra, which was basically a Glenn Miller-ish,
Yes, swing,
so
yeah.
there was swing and there was dance and there was jazz, and they were gradually being influenced by radio and television to get more into the pop world. As a small child at school, you were always asked the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, which are you a mod or a rocker? And I was like, I'm a mocker and I like the Who.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't as an act of rebellion. I just really didn't like the early Beatles, and I really thought if I was gonna we had very limited visual stimulation, 2 channels of television, both in black and
Right.
white and both on a screen this big, which, when you think about it, people are on screens smaller on their phones
Yeah,
now.
that's true.
But it's my influence then was probably localized a little and definitely funneled through the commercial arm of television. So watching Ready Steady Go and seeing bands like Eric Burdon and the Animals, House of the Rising Sun, which would, I mean, Eric Burdon was the first person to openly say that most of the music he was writing and most of the music he was making was from his American trip, that he stole the music and the ideas from for R&B. And he was one of the people, I mean, I think Eric Burdon brought back Jimi Hendrix for the first
Oh,
time
okay.
to England, and Jimi Hendrix became more famous
In
early on
England.
in
Yeah.
England before he came back to the States. So I mean, this idea that pop music was something that organically grew up through the youth. No, it didn't. I mean, it grew up through television and radio. And television and radio was very controlled. Very controlled back then. I mean, sure, there were thousands and thousands of bands and musicians and artists who, reveled in their obscurity and had fun making music. But then you're given the choice. Beatles or the Stones, Beatles or the Stones. And it's like, it's the same as a political debate. It's like, there's a spectrum of things you can do to open your mind to the possibilities. But no, it's left or right. And it's like, no, it's not. We've got a full 360.
So then you were obviously high school or secondary school, and how did you start playing and writing music yourself?
Oh gosh. I didn't start writing music and doing music on myself as TunnelMental until I was 34. So
anyway,
I started playing music as a child by attending. I wanted to learn a musical instrument, so the only way I don't want to label it as because I was poor. I didn't matter to me as a child. It didn't make any difference, but I wanted to learn a musical instrument, so I went to Salvation Army on a Sunday where they had the Salvation Army band, and I learned how to play the cornet, the trumpet.
Oh.
So I learned how to play the trumpet, and I learned how to read music. And then I realized that within the constraints of the language, learning a new language, music, learning how to formulate and write, and I thought, well, no, I can hear music in my head. Do I really need to transcribe it, or do I just write? And I've always enjoyed reading. I used to hide in the local reference library, which was expansive in Cheltenham, massive reference library. And I'd go in and just find the oldest books and just pull them out and just start reading. So I was always interested in words, so I started writing poetry even when I was very young. Now, at 10 or 11 years old, to reveal to your other boy friends, young men friends, that you're a poet would be right. I want to get my ass kicked. So, of course, I kept it all to myself. I wrote lots, and I kept journals on things that I was enjoying, but I didn't reveal that to anybody except myself. I mean, the system itself didn't allow for me to have free expression.
Did you go to college?
No, I left school when I was 11 years old, basically.
Oh, wow. So what did you do after that?
I always... My father never expressed his love for me. I was the eldest child, and I was always like great expectations, but my father was raised very Victorian, so he never said things like "I love you," which I kind of craved as a child. So
we all do, yeah. That's number one.
I knew I was loved. My mum loved me. But I did. She didn't even say it. I just knew she was there.
Right.
But in a way, my father always seemed distant to me and hard, like stern. So to get his love, and also because I really did enjoy the countryside. My father was an avid gambler on horse racing. He was a working class guy who had dreams of making $1 million out of the bookies. whatever. Anyway, but so I went and taught myself how to ride horses, and I became a jockey.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I rode as a steeplechase jockey. I I started bunking off school when I was 11. I realized that I knew the three R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. I knew everything else. I was going to be regressive to me. I don't think the schools trained you how to be in the workforce, and I didn't want to be in the workforce. I didn't want to be a repeat of my father. I didn't want to be a repeat of those around me. I just wanted to be my own individual self. So,
Wow, that's amazing that you had that so young.
well, I mean, I'll. This is what I'm saying about why now on reflection did I choose to go into horse racing and be a jockey? Well, I liked horses. I liked I liked riding racehorses. I liked the thrill of it all. But really, I was just trying to get my father's love. So still that inner child was running wild because I thought I was taking control of my life. But really,
Right.
I was just saying, Dad, tell me you love me. But I did enjoy horse racing for a while. I was moderately successful. I rode some winners.
How long did you do that? How old were you when you started?
Well, I started when I was 11 part-time, but I'd bunk off school for I wouldn't go to school much. I'd go into assembly, and then I'd sort of slide out the back door of the school and get on my bike and ride up to the local stables and start working with the horses. So I started
Wow.
when I was about 11 or 12 years old, and then I stopped horse racing as a jockey when I was 20. I'd ridden a few winners. I'd had some really crashing falls because steeplechase racing is very dangerous, especially
Is
especially if you
that
don't.
where, can you explain that? Steeplechase
Well,
racing is,
it's jump racing. You know, you're racing on a track, and there are several. That it's a very supported sport in Britain. It's not
you
so
go
much
over
here.
jumps?
Oh
You
yeah,
go over
yeah, yeah,
jumps?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
The shortest race is 2 miles. The longest race, I think, is 4.5 miles. Some of it's over larger fences. Some of it's over what they call hurdles, which, you can get away with making mistakes on a hurdle, but not really on a horse, on steeplechase fences. So
Wow.
it's rough and tumble, but
Yeah.
it's also very controlled by, again, that class system that was evident in Britain. So no matter how good I got as a jockey, I wasn't willing to call everybody in the racing circles that were owners and trainers. I wasn't willing to call them sir. I wasn't
Ah.
willing to cow down to that. I was like, well, I ride really well. Give me more rides. And they'd be like, well, you don't, my son rides all the good ones. You I mean, it was
Yeah.
cartoonish. I mean, to me, it was cartoonish. It was so transparent that the class system is and has always been a way of controlling how well a person can do. It's kind of I mean, if you're 11 or 12 or 13 years old and you recognize that there is such a thing as a glass ceiling, you're never going to get beyond the glass ceiling. And so if you recognize that when you're 11, 12, and 13, you start to mess with the system, or you find a workaround. And I had to find several workarounds in order to be successful, but it also instilled in me a sense of personal responsibility. I wanted to be independent, but I wanted to be responsible for that which I was going to achieve. So,
Right.
I took on a lot when I was very young.
Sounds like it. Amazing. Yeah,
It,
absolutely amazing. So when you were 20, you were able to support yourself through through that time?
I supported myself my whole life. Or my whole life. I've not. I don't know what you mean by supported yourself.
Well, by
I've,
your races, like it paid you.
yeah, of course. I mean, but I mean, a goldfish grows to the size of his pond.
I see. Yes.
So I always found a workaround, but I didn't really desire the mansion, the race car, the trophies. I didn't want the trophies. I was doing it for me. So I didn't really, I mean, actually, both my ex-wives, actually, I'm still married to the mother of my children, both have said that I have a very naive view of money. And I said to them, well, my naive view of money is it always comes to me. I don't go out of my way to make it my goal. It comes to me. And how that comes to me, most times it's just, I like working, I like doing the things I do, and it has its own rewards. I mean, I don't live what I would call an ostentatious lifestyle, but I always have a roof over my head, food in my stomach. I mean, I've never gone without. I've never felt like I was starving.
Yeah. So I've been reading and studying, because I'm going through this whole quote unquote cancer thing, and so I've been rereading and watching a lot of these videos about manifestation and how it works, and people like Joe Dispenza who have been studying this and putting brain scans and scanning people's brains and how it works. And it kind of seems like, Nigel, that you developed this just naturally on your own when you were very small, when healing becomes a crime, right? Yeah,
Oops.
exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, this book, it's the amazing story of, it's how the medical industry is a control system.
Oh, I know. I was just dealing with them today. It's
But
really,
this is a really good book, and because I've read it, I want to send it to you. So at the end of this, let me just
okay.
send
Thank
you the
you
book
so much.
because I've read it. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not going to read it again, and if I get cancer, I'll borrow it back so as I can read the bits.
Okay. But yeah, but I want to get back to you here because I think this is really important. So to have a fulfilling, beautiful life, following your intuition and your own purpose step by step, even when you consciously don't know, it doesn't matter because it seems like you end up getting to the places that you need to go. So I think this is really powerful for people to hear because you went from 11 years old to being a jockey, and then you supporting yourself. And then when you were 20, what did you do?
When I was 20, I took a job looking after horses rather than race riding. So for about 3 or 4 years, see, I'm really bad at my own chronology. For about 3 years, I worked for a racehorse trainer, just looking after the horses at home, not going to the races, but, making sure that they were trained well and they're fed well and they're cleaned well. And that
I
was
love horses. I had
yeah,
horses.
and that was
Yeah.
okay. I mean, it wasn't great. It was okay, but at that
Right.
time, I discovered my manhood. I discovered that I needed a woman in my life. So I married the first girl I fell in love with, which was the first girl I went out with, which was fine. I mean, it was small town England and really near the stables, and I married. See, I married her because I fell in love with her because I was a young man and I'd never had whatever. Anyway, so
You never had sex, or
no,
had you at?
no,
Okay, at that point.
I had not, and yeah, I mean, but she also had, she brought with her childhood trauma. We all have it, by the way.
Yes.
Every single one.
Well, yes,
Every
yes.
single one. No, there's not a human being on this planet that doesn't have some childhood trauma, even if it's I didn't get the Rolls Royce I wanted on my first birthday.
Especially in the West, I have noticed that there's some indigenous and even people who are, from South America, or there's, when you grow up in a more simple family, sometimes where their families are living close together, there seems to be maybe some less trauma, I've noticed, but then you get different things. So
I mean,
I think,
the trauma of the birth canal is enough for most
yes,
humans.
that's true. Yeah. I mean, I do think there is some sort of trauma that every human being goes through, but some of us are more aware of it, I think. There's some people in life
Well,
that just
some
kind
will
of,
carry it unknowingly, but
yeah.
still react out of a semblance of that happened to
Right.
them as a child. I mean,
Yes,
there's a
yes.
lot of people I know who get very offended by my bluntness. I'm a very straight talker.
No, that I appreciate it. But yeah, but
I know
and you live in LA, so that's like the
it's a
place
hot
where,
button. It's a hot
yeah,
button. I
I
mean,
bet. But
I'm
okay, I do want to get back to your story though, because
okay.
I find it very, very interesting. So you got
I
married.
got married. Okay, we were going to live together. My first wife and myself were going to live together. And I'd already started working for this racehorse trainer who had some of the most expensive racehorses in the world under his care. And I was looking after his horses. And then I approached him and said, I want to live in one of the tied cottages. Now, a tied cottage is a house that's provided with the job,
I see.
and it's on top of your wages, which is so it would be quite nice to have a free
Right.
house.
Yes.
So I asked him about that, and he said it's only for married lads. And I said,
Oh,
well, we're not married, but we're going to be together. And he's like, no, if I don't have that rule, then every guy gets a girlfriend, every girl gets a guy
I
friend.
see.
And he said, so you have to be married. So we got married, much to the chagrin of my first wife's family. They did not want that. We got married on her 2 days after her 18th birthday, which was the only legal way we could have got married anyway, apart from you can run off to a place called Gretna Green on the border of Scotland, where you can go to a registry office and get married at 16. But 18, you can legally get married. So we got married 2 days after her 18th birthday. I got a free cottage. We moved in there. My wife worked at the local pub, which was literally like 50 yards from our back door. I worked on the horses and we had fun. And during that time in the early 70s, mid 70s, there was a punk rock explosion. And I would like to say, even though it sounds trite, punk rock saved my life. And it wasn't because I didn't have an appreciation of music. It was the fact that I was deemed such a novice because I didn't know how to, or I'd chosen not to write and have music lessons. I it was like, oh, you're not a musician. You can't become a musician. You can't have a band. You can't write music. Well, punk rock just showed me.
It changed everything.
Yeah, just do it. If you want to do it, do it. So around that time, I got into the punk rock explosion. It happened in Britain, 76, 77. But I found the more radical ones were the ones that weren't on the cover of the New Musical Express or Sounds magazine. They were the ones that were releasing their own material, like Crass. So I was more interested in their more radical, non-corporate way of doing things and do it yourself. I like the idea of DIY. I've always liked the idea of DIY. I mean, doesn't matter what, if I need to fix something in my house, I'll try and do it. And if if I have to get a plumber in to fix what I messed up or whatever, it's so be it. But I like do it yourself. That way you can feel a sense of pride in what you've done, or learn from that mistake and go, okay, I really needed to consult a manual. But I've learned along the way to embrace that. And I think punk rock opened that door as much as my reading of endless novels and books. And I just had a voracious appetite for reading.
I can see in your music now the punk rock attitude in it. Totally. Yeah. I can totally feel that. So did you get into a punk rock band?
No. I mean, I didn't. I followed. I went to see a lot of bands and had fun. For the first 3 years of my marriage, was I had a free house. I hadn't experimented much with just going out and painting the town red.
Right.
And so, my first wife and I just went nuts for 3 years. I mean, I'd already had a somewhat of a courtship with alcohol. When I was race riding as a jockey, I was avoiding food because my
You
weight.
had to be small.
Yeah, so I was avoiding food, and I was I was taking liquid lunches. I was drinking a lot, and when I met my first wife, and we had fun with that. And then she was what I would call a weekender. From Friday through Monday, she never saw a sober moment. So I had to take responsibility for taking care of her because she was completely wild, right? So it was like having a wild racehorse, It's just, wow. I mean, gosh, So we had fun, but I gave up alcohol at that time too.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah. So after 2 or 3 years, I decided, well, where can I go to make more money so as I can have more fun? I mean, it wasn't making money for the sake of like, oh, I want a big house and I wanted it. No, it was, how can I have more fun? And I'd always been around horses and I knew I could always go back to horses. So I was like, try something else. Well, it's really strange because as a child being told by the careers officer in school when I was 10 or 11 years old, don't get ideas above your station, do what your father did, become a mailman. I decided, well, I knew that game. I'll go and be a mailman. So I left horse racing, went into being a postman, but of course I got involved in the union because I was a radical punk rock idiot. I got involved in the union, so I became a very union-driven mailman and became the chairman of the union. And I mean, it just it just it just made me more and more isolated because the unions in Britain at the time fully accepted the class system, fully accepted that there was a postmaster and you were a postal servant. I mean, these are all things that I learned as I was going along. The language of the control system. Master servant, master servant. And I never wanted a master. I never wanted to be a servant. I wanted equality. So I did the post office for a while. We made a shitload of money. I did lots and lots of overtime and learned how to do my postal round in half the time it took that I would get paid for. And then I'd take on in overtime another round that I could do in half the time. So I get twice my wage. I mean, it was just crazy shit, but got a load of stuff and got a load of money. Bought a little apartment through a housing association with my first wife. And it was a small apartment, but it was when we moved
Did you have children at that point? No,
we were in our mid-20s, late 20s. And both of us were just party animals with very radical views and didn't know where to put them. But we moved into an apartment that was a housing association, so it was very low controlled rent. But I moved in knowing through a friend of a friend that they were going to sell these apartments and they were going to sell them at low rates, like super low rates. So I thought to myself, well, if we buy it low, we could buy another house or we could cash out. Now, I talked to my parents about it and my parents were like, oh yeah, you just buy a nicer, bigger house and then you have children and then and I was like, oh shit, this sounds like the loop. I'm getting in the loop. And I was like, oh no, I'm not getting in the loop. So I found out that within a week of buying the apartment, I sold the apartment for twice what it's worth. I took all the money and told my wife, we're going around the world for a year and a bit, or as long as our money lasts, we're going to go go traveling. And she was like, we've never been abroad. And I'm like, it doesn't matter.
So you did that?
Yeah. I mean, that's
fantastic.
That's when I mean, I knew from reading, I knew from experiencing, I knew from, little holidays near abroad, little European bits, but I knew that I had to take the blinders off. Even though inside I'd done a lot of traveling, outside I hadn't experienced it, so I needed to peel off layers.
Right.
Yeah, I traveled around the world for a year and a half. Well, it wasn't. It was over a year, but backpacking around the world on
Wow.
I think we had $50 a week was our budget, spending money.
What year was that?
Oh gosh, mid '80s.
Mid 80s? Okay,
Yeah,
that's a good time. It was okay. So, all right. So let's move on. So you went around the world, and then what did you decide to do?
well, because I'd been writing poetry and keeping a journal from that time. And, well, I've been keeping a journal most of my life, but it's like I decided when I came back, I'm like, I have no limitations. I have zero limitations. They think I have limitations, so I have zero limitations. What is it I want to do? And I thought, well, I'm going to front a band. I'm going to start singing and dancing like I did when I was a kid. I'm going to write my own music. I'm going to get a bunch of mates together, and we're just going to go play gigs and have fun with it. And that's what I did. So, that's when Tunnel started.
Oh, so is that when TunnelMental started? Oh,
Yeah.
so on YouTube you can look up TunnelMental, and I'll have everything in the show notes where your YouTube channel. So you've had that name all this time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. When we started out, it was me, my first wife, and a couple mates, and we called ourselves Tunnel Men. And we were 2 guitars at some point, a bass player and a drummer, and then we were a drum machine, and then I mean it just kept evolving. So at one point we lost our drummer and we lost a bass player, and I said, okay, well, we can't keep going as Tunnel Men, so we're going to change it to TunnelMental. And the reason I called it TunnelMental because I'd been reading a brilliant book called Future Shock by by Alvin Toffler. And Alvin Toffler was talking about the technological advances and how it's going to create this gap in the generations if we don't keep pace with technology. But at the same time, we're going to have some sort of future shock of what's going to come at us very, very fast. And I recognized and realized that because at the same time, DJ culture through the rave culture in Britain was burgeoning. I had a background in punk rock. I had a background in new wave. So to marry the two and become TunnelMental, it was more like Alvin Toffler said that we run the risk of a whole generation being trapped in tunnel vision. And I thought at the time, it's like, no, they're not just seeing it that way. They're living it that way. So it's TunnelMental.
I see, yes.
So I made the word up. And also I thought I was very clever with words.
It is. Yeah, it's a great
Well, I also
name.
thought I was being very clever in words. 3 additional letters. TunnelMen, TAL. 3 additional letters.
Right.
I mean, everything I do is like, what is it my friend calls it? Michael Wan, one of the people I like his podcasts. It's synchromistic.
Oh, yes. Yes. Synchromistic. Yeah.
Yes. But most of what I've done my whole life has a sign.
It is.
It has a synchromistic quality.
It does.
I don't think
This is what I'm. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we're predestined for anything. I think we set that as a template in front of us that this is what I desire, and the pattern unfolds and it becomes synchromistic, but you mustn't try and control it. You mustn't go, oh no, you've got to come over here. No, Just let it happen. And
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's surprising what synchronistically comes to you when you're coming from a place of, again, back to the start, unconditional love.
And I could feel when you were saying that to me that that's so incredibly wise. It's because it's another way of allowance, of surrender to the greater mystical experience that we have here. But you have the ability, you have the natural ability. It just came with you. You never stopped it. You just
Well,
allowed it. Yeah, it's incredible. It's very beautiful. I hope that
oh,
people
thank you.
really listen to that in a deep way. Even go back on
I
this
think we're
this
all. I
interview.
think we're all
Yeah,
artists. I think we're all artists.
yeah.
I think we're all conduits. But that conduit gets furred up. Like they talk about your veins get furred up, or the pipes if you're a plumber. They get furred up, and they get furred up with all sorts of things that are unimportant. So if you just open yourself to that portal, I mean, gosh,
Yes.
I read a lot. So to me, earliest revelations through mysticism were William Blake opening the
Right.
doors of perception. The doors must be cleansed.
Yes.
So again, taking responsibility for opening that door, not just opening that door and going, hey, everybody, because all the crap comes in at the same time. So you've gained nothing from going through the door. So
Right.
cleanse the doors, understand that your perception and your perspective is a continuance. I mean, we live in a duality. We're humans experiencing life. And there's duality in this life.
Yes.
And we should balance it as best we can and take responsibility for it. But eventually, in this human experience, the hero's journey, all of these Jung. I mean, the whole idea is to work on your shadow self so as your light self can understand the oneness. So as when we
Yes.
do eventually pass through this human experience into the eternal self, we will have the ability to understand that this is the beauty of our goal. We can't, it's a mystery, it's a
Yes.
divine mystery, and it must be left as a divine mystery. But if we live our life in knowledge of that coming to us, then we should be living loving life.
Yes, yes, and you
That are
radiate that.
mo-
That's what I've been attracted to you, because you're radiating that love in everything that you do. So I want to get to more of the present. I mean, your story, you should write about it at some point. You should write your own, autobiography, because I can't believe the stories. You've already told me stories, and this could be going on for forever. Now I see what you were saying. It's just that you've had such an amazing life. So, how did you get to Los Angeles? Let's explore
I
that.
my first, obviously on the round the world trip with my first wife, we came to Los Angeles. We met people here. I liked Southern California. Obviously, I've grown up 34 years in grey,
Right.
rainy England, and
Yeah.
boom, Southern California. So I already liked Los Angeles. I liked California, Southern California. So having experienced around the world trip, going back to making music, getting the band going, making sure that I loved what we were doing and doing what we love, and going out and playing shows, I sent our first demo tape to the people that we stayed with when we were traveling. And the guy knew somebody who worked at a college radio station. Now, I had no perception of what that meant, but we were immediately carted on a college radio show that was popular in Los Angeles.
Oh, that's excellent.
So I was like, okay, lads, we're doing a rehearsal for a show we're going to play in West Country in England. I said, okay, to the lads of the band, I said, okay, lads, we're off to LA. And they're like, what? But we did. We upped sticks and spent 6 months in Los Angeles playing, because I thought, well, we'd played a few radio sessions for BBC Radio Bristol and a few other things in Britain, but it was all such a pop game and such a I wanted the band to be a vehicle for expansion, not a band for the opposite of the funnel. The funnel you go in, you can be expressive within. Once you get in, they're great bands out of Britain, but the getting in process was just like, no, I'm not.
Oh yeah.
So to know that we were being played on the radio was enough to encourage me to go back to LA and take the band with me and go, okay, we can play underground shows here and we'll just have fun. And we did. So that was why I came back to LA, and
And you stayed?
No, I went back after we got an album deal from at the time. I mean, it was pre-internet, really. I mean, there was a little whispers that there's this thing, but there was no internet. So a record label, little independent record label, said, we want to do an album with you guys. And I said, well, I'm going to go back to England, because a lot of members of the band, we haven't got the green cards necessary. So we went back to England and we recorded a first album for an independent record label that was LA based. No, East Coast based. They were a subsidiary of a popular independent label, Fundamental Records. And so I was like, oh, it's cool. They're going to pay for us to go in the recording studio. I had a mate.
That's great.
Yes, so I went and recorded with a mate in the middle of England, and he had he'd bought an apartment, 2 apartments, knocked them together, and made one of them the recording side of the studio, and the rest the living house. It was quite DIY and brilliant, and we did our first demo there. So we did the album there, and that was fun. And it wasn't long till that record label got eaten up. The big fish eat the little fish.
Yeah.
And then we were dropped because we'd only sold, I think 3,000 vinyl and 3,000 CDs, and that wasn't enough to keep us on the album, keep us on their label. So whatever. So I was like, no, just moving on. So we moved to Bristol. I started doing, I started promoting shows in Bristol, a place called the Fleece and Firkin, and helping a friend out there. And I made a bit of money doing that. And then I started doing more dodgy shows, raves and illegal stuff. And, or illegal at the I mean, I don't even think that they weren't illegal. They were just skirting around the law. So I did a few raves and a few things like that. And then I relaunched the band. That was when we lost members, and relaunched the band as TunnelMental, and just never looked back. I mean, I got a four song. Well, actually, I got approached by another label, and they said, we want an album. And I said, I'll give you 4 songs. I said, but we're going to choose the recording studio. And they were like, where's the recording studio? Because you're based in Bristol. And I said, Los Angeles. So we did. We went back, and at that stage, things were just crazy. I was running a nightclub in LA. I was.
Oh wow! Okay.
That got eaten by the earthquake. The building next door to it was a story higher, and it came through and smashed.
Oh wow! Okay.
I didn't own the club, but all my equipment, everything in it was in it, got destroyed, and Then I started art directing music videos, early music videos for crazy
Oh,
people.
okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
I can
just,
see that. Yeah, you've done all sorts of stuff, huh? Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah.
You're a true autodidact. You know, I
Am
I
I?
am yeah, you're doing all sorts of everything it seems like.
I just, I,
So,
I just like I like experimenting. I like
right.
life, and I do music and art, and I'll make money at it if I can, and that's
Right.
it. You know.
So the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, because last summer, this means a lot to me. I started this whole thing that I'm going through right now. It's about, oh, excuse me, about a year ago. And I started getting this pain. And I thought it was all psychosomatic, which I still believe that it's coming from a root of my own personal trauma that I've been healing. And I've done even more deep healing all of last year. But so I saw you on Instagram and you had just taken off in a camper
It's what
and you,
I live in it.
yeah, and you went across the country. And then you were reporting every day your experiences and of what you were learning and the different places that you went in the country. And it was really beautiful. And there was something incredibly deep about it to me. It resonated with me on a really deep level, all those messages that you gave every day of your experience and the
Oh.
people that you met and the different places and about our country, about United States. And what spurred you to do that? And what did you learn? Like, what was the essence, the gold out of that?
Well, I mean, I went through like 2 years ago. Actually, this year, the last couple of years, I've lost family members. My dad first, my mum, then my brother, sister, and I went back to England on two of the occasions. I couldn't go back for my father's because of the stupid restrictions.
Yeah.
But whatever. And when my mum passed, um, which was just over a year ago, she and my dad had a house that they were living in, and me and my sister and my brother sold the house, and we split the money that was made from it, and I managed to buy an RV. So I decided that I was going to live in my RV and go on regular trips across the United States, because as much as I've been a traveler, like a physical nomad, I'm also nomadic in my soul. My soul, the core of me, craves travel, craves new experiences. It can be inward travel too, but I really like the idea, and I was also stuck in Southern California for a very long time. I mean, my daughters, who are absolutely the treasure of my heart and will always be number one in my life. They're 20 and 22. They're grown up, they're women, they're out in the world, and they're doing their thing. And
That's
I
awesome.
love
Yeah.
them, I support them, and I help them as much as possible. But they're Southern California. So I was like, okay, well, I need to be based somewhere. So I'm based here. But there's nothing to stop me driving wherever I want in the. Actually, I could go all the way through Canada. You know what I mean? I can travel. So having the vehicle was like, okay, make it my home, but at the same time make that home a vehicle for my travels and my experiences. And then I just thought about it. Before I took this 6-7 week trip across the States, I could have easily organized a lot of things along the way, but I didn't feel like it. There was one thing I had to do on the East Coast, which was attend a wedding of one of my daughter's cousins, and do a family event. But that was just one day, so it's like I had that one day to aim for on the East Coast. So I was like, no, I'm going to find out, because of all the hullabaloo around big cities,
Yes.
Los Angeles and Chicago, and I was like, no, I want to see the small towns. I want to experience firsthand the small towns of America, and feel how people are. And so, just set off Route 66, and I ended up going from the southwestern corner of the United States to the northeastern corner, and then bit down the East Coast, and then back up to the Great Lakes and that area, Michigan area, and then followed the Mississippi down to New Orleans, and then across Texas. And we got caught up in that ugly heat wave.
Yeah, that was a horrific summer. Yeah,
We got
very,
caught.
very hot.
We got caught up in that, and my RV broke down, and then I stayed in Austin for 2 or 3 days, and I actually went to the street corners where I'd seen you busking,
Oh, yes.
hoping to bump into you. I mean,
Yeah, that's because I was already
know.
going through this, and then we went to Europe for a few weeks too. But yeah,
but I came back through Texas as quick as I can
Yeah.
because of the heat, and it was awful. But then I came back to a beautiful place, and now I'm settled here, and I'm starting to sort myself out again. I had the flu for the last couple of weeks,
a lot of people
but
did.
I'm over that.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking forward to my next adventure, and I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that whatever comes to you is going to be magnificent. I think your
You
life
too.
story, and what you have to bring is really deep wisdom and deep art. And I really want people, we're going to end this interview with one of your songs, a more recent one on TunnelMental, your YouTube. You have so much material there, and it's all just fantastic. So I really recommend people go check it out. But this is called Middle. And since we're going to end on it, can you tell us what you were thinking about or what inspired you on this particular track?
Well, this is probably a remix of the original song "Middle" from the album. What album is it from? I put out so much music.
I know you do.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing.
It's yeah. I mean, but middle. When we wrote the song, when I wrote the song with my music partner at the time, who sadly can't do it anymore, he had a stroke. So
That's
bless you,
sorry.
Derek. It's okay. Well, I carry on my own, but but for him, bless you, Derek. He was just such an amazing producer. Anyway, Middle was obviously, I'm inspired by literature always, but the Tao
Yes.
always with me, but also Alan Watts. He wrote an interpretation of Zen called The Middle Way,
Yes.
and that interpretation brought it to a Western audience, but it's still a very dense but very small book. I
Well,
think.
I have a sync before you continue. So when I was a teenager and I ran away from home when I was 15, 16, my girlfriend, who I ended up living with, she is the granddaughter of Alan Watts.
Wow.
And yeah, and so I grew up with Alan Watts on the stairway, this really mischievous picture of him. And I swear, every time I would go down the stairway, his picture would change, like his
Right, his eyes
smile
would
would
follow you.
change. Yeah, no, I seriously. But
Yeah,
anyway, so a little sync. Yeah, Alan
that's
Watts
cool.
is, yeah.
That's cool. I mean, to me, it's like I wrote middle because I could see this whole push me pull you. I mean, right at the beginning of Fovid, that I said this is the spirit animal of Fovid, and I put up a picture of the push me pull you, which was the two-headed llama from
Yes.
Talk to the Animals guy, and I because it's what it's going to do is it's going to push us to extremes. And what we have to do is find that middle path. And that middle way is one of, again, forgiveness, but not forgetting. We have to forgive those that trespassed against us. And they sure did. They
Yes.
trespassed against us.
Oh, definitely.
But we have to be bigger than them. We have to forgive them, not forget. And some of them should be prosecuted. But
Yes.
it's very much like, let's realign with our middle. Let's not go to the extremes of this political or this, find that middle path. So I wrote middle, trying to get people to understand their own role within this big ugly picture that was being pull push.
Yes. And it's
So
still going on, and we
so
all, yeah. Yes, we love technology. Actually, it is very helpful. But so the message for today is that let us let go, let it all go. I have a song called Let It Go. And let's love one another, come to the center, come to a middle, and help each other and help our communities evolve
absolutely,
and do our best.
absolutely,
And thank you so much, Nigel, for sharing your
bless
gold.
you.
I do hope that you get to share your story with many, many more people. I think a lot of people would get a lot of inspiration from it. And please check out his music and his art on TunnelMental, and then it'll be in the notes. And then also, shadowtechalchemy.com is our website. And if any of you would like to donate to me and the cause of me healing myself right now of this cancer, I'll have that in the notes too.
Good.
And I can't work right now. So, anyway, so thank you so much.
All right.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Love.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Love, love.
I was half asleep and drifting towards dream time. The TV in the background was spouting paranoid nonsense. As usual, someone in search of a few seconds of fame made wide-sweeping ignorant statements. Today's toddler is tomorrow's criminal. Build more prisons, fewer schools. Blah, blah, bloody blah. I drifted once more, blocking the TV from my mind. I was swimming in the warm waters of the river of knowledge. My mind became an open door to this perfect world, where education is the key to life, and everyone who wanted a key could just pick them from the trees. It was bliss, 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 bliss. It was bliss, it was bliss, it was bliss. It was bliss, it was bliss, it was bliss, bliss, bliss.
can tell you with all sincerity that I and the government of which I am a member are deeply sorry about this.
The love of money is the root of evil. Very true saying.
It was bliss.